Time now for Focus, and today we're looking at what's being done in Germany to help refugees integrate into society. We've got a report from a town of 4,000 people, which has taken in 800 refugees. They're getting assistance from the state, of course, but also from some locals. Jessica Saltz reports.
We are in Schlotheim, in the German state of Thuringia, a quiet town of 4,000 inhabitants that has seen its population increase by 20% over just a few months. In January, 800 refugees settled on the outskirts of the town. Most of them are from Afghanistan or Syria. Their priority is to learn German so that they can integrate quickly.
Sie ist verheiratet.
Mandy is a volunteer and comes here 3 times a week to give courses.
The goal is to learn German so that after the summer they can join the school. Some know a lot, having been to school before, but there are also children who've never gone to school, so they can't start normal classes straight away.
This residence was built very hastily after the arrival of more than 1 million asylum seekers last year. 4 social workers were recruited here to look after them, help them settle in and advise them on administrative procedures.
School
registration forms are a lot of paperwork, and they can't do it alone. Then there are job centre applications, health insurance, asylum applications, stacks of paper.
Learning the language, adapting to everyday life in Germany, it's a constant struggle for these refugees, especially since they are isolated from the rest of the population. Many of them see it as an obstacle to integration.
All students here are from Afghanistan and we only speak Dari and Farsi with each other, so we don't learn German very well.
Expedition in Germany is about another thing is good. Only my place is one village. In village is no school, no for study for children. We want to go to one big city.
Their only daily contact with the local German population are the round trips they take between the city and the town's supermarket. But here, the sudden presence of these migrants is a cause for concern to residents.
They just put the refugees here right in front of us and wait to see what happens. They've been behaving badly, for example, the way they ride their bikes. They don't really know how to ride, I saw it again today. They don't pay attention and the cars have to brake for them.
You can't shop in peace, all the conversations back and forth, it's simply not nice. I usually go shopping in the mornings now, when I'm sure they're all still sleeping.
It's a clash of cultures on a provincial level. The local parish has recruited a group of volunteers to help ease the tensions. Their mission? To organise activities for the residents of the centre, such as these art classes. About 50 people have signed up to help.
No one knew what to expect. No one had explained anything to us. So then we decided with our priest that we'll just go there and see what's going on. And we've met such lovely people that we just thought, we have to do something.
The priest shows them a website created by local authorities that aims to put locals in touch with the newcomers. He believes it's the duty of civil society to help with the integration of refugees.
On this web page, you can say, I'm looking for a job, or I'm looking for a flat.
The refugees receive support from the state, but what the state can't do is create ways for Germans and the refugees to interact with each other. This has to come from the general public themselves.
A long process, and one the Germans don't have much faith in. According to a report published in May, half of the population thinks that the presence of refugees will have a negative impact on their culture.
For more on the integration of refugees in Germany, I'm joined by Barbara Kunz from the French Institute of International Relations. Hello, thank you very much for coming in. So, in April, a couple of months ago now, the German government unveiled an integration law for refugees. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, first of all, this is the first in German history that there is such a law, which still needs to be passed by the parliament. But now we have a proposal that's going to be voted before the summer. And this integration law is based on the idea that, on the one hand, Germany has to do something to integrate these refugees, but that also people coming to Germany have to make efforts to become members of the society.
So what sort of efforts? Learning the language, for one?
Learning the language for one, then it's give and take, if you will. It's Germany, the government just makes it easier for people to have access to the labor market. On the other hand, there are more restrictions for people who cannot pay for their own living. For instance, the state will be able to tell them where to live as long as they don't have jobs to, pay for their own lives, basically. So, yeah, there's rules for both sides, and it's an attempt to put demands on the refugees by also increasing offers that make it possible for people to integrate.
Do you agree with the priest we spoke to for our report, or Jessica Saltz interviewed for that report, who says that it's not just the state's responsibility to help refugees integrate into society, but also the responsibility of locals, everyday German people?
Absolutely. The state is just not there at the grassroots level and ensuring encounters between people in everyday life. At work, at the market, in the street, and so on and so forth. So that is something that needs to happen at that same level. And I think that Germany is in a good position to actually do so, just because Germany has this very strong civil society and all these associations and people engaging in many different activities, from, fire brigades and many clubs and things like that. So there should be room for that.
When you say it needs to happen, again, the priest here in the report, when he tells local refugees about this website they can go to find out about jobs, obviously this is already happening in this particular town, a very small town. How widespread are initiatives like this one, would you say?
But I think it very much depends on individual people taking the initiatives. So that varies a lot. And of course, in the bigger cities, you have more people who can do something and are willing to do something, and sometimes also have the experience to do something. Whereas in smaller towns like this one we've seen, they simply don't have the experience of refugees coming in, or foreigners coming in a more general sense. So that's where things are more difficult.
We saw that some people we spoke to seem a little bit concerned about what it's going to mean for their town, that perhaps they're not sure what to expect. And the end of the report mentions this 50%, I think it was, of the German population concerned about the impact on their cultural identity, on their country's identity of these refugees. What sort of worries do they have? What do they think refugees, how could they impact negatively on the culture of Germany?
Well, I think what people still have in mind is what happened on December 31st in Cologne, when you had all these problems of sexual harassment, and people are afraid of that. Now it turns out that this didn't have anything to do with refugees, but it still lingers on. So I think it's very much about values and how, women in society, but also human rights, all these things.
Then you've got the far right in Germany fueling those concerns, don't you?
Absolutely. That's how they work, and just making people afraid. But I think that overall people, if you look at the polls, for instance, the far right doesn't get very far in those polls. They're still at about 10% at national level, although they've had higher scores at regional elections. So there is a regional difference there. But overall, I think that also the government has understood that there are fears like that. And I think that this integration law that we just talked about is also one step to...
So that's part of easing the fears by setting some rules for both parties. What else is the government doing to ease these concerns that the German population has about absorbing more than 1 million people?
Well, many of these fears are also about the financial aspect, that it's very expensive to feed everybody, to put it simply, and that this will cost the German taxpayer a lot of money. So one of the things you can always hear, and I guess they are absolutely right, is that integration also very much goes through integrating people on the labor market. And so among the measures taken by the government is to actually simplify the access to the labor market. So that is one thing. The second measure that is also going to be taken in this integration immigration law is to actually say that people are not allowed to choose freely where they want to live as long as they cannot pay for, finance their own life. And that is also with the very clear intention to not have any ghettos, as they say, emerge.
Because in this particular town, we saw how all the refugees are on the outskirts of the city, not quite in the town itself.
Well, I think that is mainly also a logistical problem, is that when you have a lot of people arriving, you have to put them somewhere, and you obviously put them where you have the room to put them. So it's like old schools in villages like this one, where I'd guess that the school has closed many years ago because there are not enough children, or army barracks. But the plan is not to have those people live in such places for
in the long term.
Yes, exactly.
Right. All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Barbara Kunz, for coming in for today's Focus.